Welcome to another family art project. I'm Autumn, the education coordinator for Studio 23. Today I wanted to do a project that was inspired by the color pencil work of Julie Tislicki, and if you tuned in, if you tuned in with Tara, you got to learn a little more about Julie's work. And so obviously, since Julie works so beautifully in colored pencil, that's what I decided to do. I decided to do a little colored pencil project. And more than that, I thought I would do a very, very basic introduction to colored pencil techniques. So here's what we're going to be making today. We're going to be making this really simple little ice cream cone, but more than that, I'm going to show you techniques with it along the way. So for this project, all we're going to need is some paper and some colored pencils, okay? To get started, remember, I like to fold my paper to make that big plus sign in the middle. Having those quadrants really helps me keep an idea of where stuff belongs. So we're gonna start with just getting those folds in. And as always, if you don't like to put the folds in your paper, go right ahead and just draw it out. You could use a ruler or anything else, just draw it very lightly, okay? All right, got my folds and I'm ready to go. So to start with, we're gonna start with drawing out the cone of the ice cream. So I'm just gonna use a brown colored pencil. And what I'm gonna do is for you, it would be the two bottom quadrants, right? Oh, I'm sorry, and today our paper is portrait, not landscape, but it's gonna be portrait. All right, so we're gonna go right to the middle of our paper, right to that line that we created, and we're gonna do just a little, maybe start in the middle of this quadrant, and we're gonna make a kind of little bit of a rounded line to the other middle. So just really simple, maybe not even that big, maybe we'll do it a little smaller. Yeah, I think that's better, okay. So it's just a little bit of a rounded line, we're gonna start to make the top of our cone, okay? All right, and then we have to make the triangle for the bottom part of our cone. So what I like to do is mark off where I want it to end. So I'll say my cone's gonna end about here, and then I just make a line from one point to the other. All right, one line, and two. All right, so we should have our basic ice cream cone shape, okay? So now, to color it in, we're gonna go over our first technique. Our first colored pencil technique is hatching. And hatching is simply close lines. So if you look at our example right here, see how it's just very, very light coloring? And it's just a lot of light lines. That is, can't wait to have ice cream, I know. Let's see. So we're gonna just do some very light lines to do hatching. Now, when I draw with colored pencils, I really prefer to use the side of my pencil for hatching because I feel like it gives me a little control. So I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna start making little lines. It doesn't have to be perfect, as long as I'm staying in the same direction, I think you'll get the idea of it. Pretty simple, right? And that is hatching, okay? So now, if you wanted to make the folded part, the darker part of our ice cream cone, thanks Val, you like the diagram. Oh, thank you very much. So let's see. Hi Lisa Esparza, how are you doing? So to do the darker part, we're gonna do another technique, which is called cross hatching, which, if you guessed it, is very similar to hatching, but it's literally just, instead of having all your lines go one direction, you're going to cross over top, cross hatching, hence the term, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw just a little kind of folded line here, just to kind of give the idea of where the cone might have lapped over, and then we're just gonna do cross hatching. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna make that area a little darker. So it's gonna make our eyes think that it's recessed a little bit, right? That it's a little further away. And that's gonna help add a little bit of that realness to our picture. And if you look at Julie's artwork, you'll see that she does a lot of light and dark work to help give depth in her pictures. All right, so we have our basic hatching, cross hatching for our ice cream cone. All right, so now we're gonna move on to our actual ice cream scoops. So for the first ice cream scoop, I'm gonna make it blue. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back up to that middle line that we drew, and we're gonna probably give like a finger, like maybe a finger distance, and then we're gonna make a big giant C shape. We don't want it exactly touching the bottom of the cone, but see, I just did a big giant C shape. And then from there, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do just some wavy lines on the bottom, just to kind of give the idea of, you know, the bottom of the scoop that maybe doesn't look so quite even and round as the rest of the ice cream. All right, so we got our scoop, we got the bottom of it, it's looking pretty good. So for this part, I'm gonna show you a technique that is pretty easy. I think you might even know this one already. This is just scribbling, okay? So scribbling for colored pencil is really just doing random lines with varied pressure. And if you look at my original, right there, see, that's just a lot of scribbling with varied pressure. And if I go lighter, the further in I go, it gives the idea that this part is lighter and a little closer. This is where the light is hitting, right? So we're gonna do some scribbling, a little harder on the outside, and on the way in, it's gonna get lighter, okay? And scribbling, we're just doing a lot of those little circles, right? So let's just go for it. A lot of scribbling. Let's see. All right, so I'm scribbling, but as I start to go towards the inside, I'm gonna lighten up that pressure. Because like I said, I want it to look like the front of my ice cream cone is lighter, the light's hitting it. I want it to look a little closer. I want to try and create a little bit of depth with my ice cream. And now in the middle part, I'm really lightening it up, right? Because I want it to be a lot lighter than the outside. And you can always go over, make adjustments, make stuff a little darker if you need. All right, so as you can see, I've created a little depth by the amount of pressure I've done while scribbling, right? The more layers you put down scribbling to, the darker you will get. Yes, exactly, Julie, we'll get there. I promise we'll get there. So the next step we're gonna do is, like Julie just mentioned to you, is we're gonna do some layering. So layering is just placing colors directly on top of each other. So what I am gonna do for my layering, because I really want the outside of my ice cream to look darker and therefore further away, to help create that shape of the ice cream, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to use the complementary or opposite color of blue, which would be orange, and I'm gonna scribble around the outside. And what complementary colors do is when you put them together, they sort of cancel each other out. And so they create either like a gray or a brown or a variation thereof. So we're gonna do orange, even though it sounds funny, around the outside, and it's gonna darken that up. Okay, so let me grab my orange, and I'm gonna do it the same way. I'm gonna keep scribbling. And the nice thing about colored pencil, which I'm sure Julie can tell you, is you can layer it so much that you can just keep going back and forth until you get the desired color and effect that you're looking for. All right, so I did some dark scribbling. I'm gonna lighten up a little bit on my pressure now because I don't want this part to be as dark as I go around. All right. And then I'm gonna go back in with a little bit of blue and really try and get that blue and that orange to cancel each other out, so it creates that darker, that grayish brown kind of color. Because that's all just going to help me send it to the back, right? That's how my eye is going to perceive it, that it's further away. And that's how I'm going to make it more realistic. All right. There is our first scoop. I think it's looking pretty good. I think we can move on to our last scoop of ice cream. So for this one, I'm going to use red. Complementary colors neutralize each other. Yes, Julie, exactly. That's what I'm trying to show them. I had a feeling you used that in your artwork. Had a feeling. Okay. So for this one, I'm going to do red, but I'm going to do it the same way. Okay, I'm going to give myself about a finger width, and then I'm going to draw my big C so I can do another scoop of ice cream, right? So with my red, I got my big scoop right here, and then I'm going to do those wavy lines again to make it look like my scoop of ice cream is sitting on top of my blue ice cream, okay? So wavy lines. And they don't have to be perfect because we'll fix them up as we go. All right, so there's my second scoop of ice cream. Okay, so what I'm gonna do for this one is I'm gonna color it in completely with my red colored pencil. And I'm gonna use like a lot of heavy pressure so I can show you another technique called burnishing, okay? So I'm just gonna go in with my red, and I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna use some heavy pressure here. So if you're not used to it, you might have to take a break and let your hand or your wrist rest a little bit, right? All right. Heavy pressure. And at some point you may need to sharpen your pencils back up, so if you do have a pencil sharpener around, it might be a good idea to keep that around. And as we saw in the video previously, I know Julie always keeps her colored pencils around, or excuse me, her pencil sharpeners around for her colored pencils. All right. So I was using a really heavy pressure, and I colored in my second scoop of my ice cream, okay? Now what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna, again, use my complementary color to create the idea of shadow around the edge and create the idea that it's further back in space. So again, I can make it more realistic, right? So I'm gonna use my green colored pencil, and I'm gonna go in and this is also gonna be kind of heavy because it's got to try and go over top of that heavy red that I just put down. And I'm going to go in with my green. Now as I get further in, I might want to lighten up my pressure just a little bit because I don't want it to be quite as dark, right? So I'll go in maybe about ½ inch, and then I'm going to start lightening that pressure just a little bit. Same thing all the way around. Go in about ½ inch and then lighten that pressure. Okay? I'm going to keep doing that. And that's just a really easy way to add nice shadow in what you're working on, and then to help create form on top of it. The other thing you can do is you can go in little here and there in little areas with your green, and it'll help create little pockets of depth in your ice cream. So there's a lot of little things you could explore and work on while you're doing it. All right. All right. And I think maybe a little more, but I think we're pretty close with the green. Yep, the best results require at least 3 to 6 times layering the colors. That is a great tip, Julie. Thank you so much. I love that. All right, so we'll go in right. So I think that's good enough. We have our shade with our green, our complementary color, and our red ice cream. But for the last thing that we're gonna do to our ice cream, I'm gonna show you the technique that's burnishing. And burnishing in colored pencils is literally just adding white or light colored pencil on top of whatever you already have to blend it out. And it's really just the same way you did the red or the green. You're just gonna do heavy pressure all over the top of it with your white colored pencil. It's super easy. So you're just gonna go in on the entire thing with that heavy pressure. And you can see automatically just with one layer of the white on top of these colors, it's already starting to blend it. And I don't know, Julie, do you use a lot of white to help blend your stuff? I guess that's a question that just popped in my head. And again, these are very basic techniques. You can learn a lot more great techniques, even better techniques, like Tara had mentioned from Julie's workshop that's coming up May 27th. She's doing a still life colored pencil workshop through Zoom, so you can do it from the comfort of your home. It's going to be a great workshop, great way to learn how to use colored pencils, and a great way to learn how to do still life and to actually draw what you're seeing, not what your brain is telling you you see, which are two very different things. All right. So if you can see, I've got it blended now. I might need another layer, but I really need to sharpen my white colored pencil. But you can see it's really starting to blend it. And if I start to move my ice cream away, you can see that I'm actually starting to create form with the way I've used my different colors for my colored pencil. So this is my Julie Tislicki inspired colored pencil art piece. As you can see, super easy. Doesn't take a lot of time. Julie says she uses white to lighten, highlights, and uses light colors as a blending. Also a great tip. That's a fantastic tip. Thank you, Julie, so much for that. Yeah, otherwise, be sure and check out on our Facebook and our website. All the information about Julie's workshop is on there. Sign up for it. It's going to be a fantastic workshop. Thank you. I appreciate it. Nice job. All right. That's it for me. I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic weekend. And next up, we have Val. We'll see you later. Bye.